I watched the security camera footage of my young husband passionately kissing our new hostess in the wine cellar, and all I feel is disappointment. Not in him, in myself. How could I, Sarah Coleman, owner of a successful restaurant chain and a woman who built a business empire from scratch, fall so foolishly for a pretty face and a sob story about a struggling personal trainer? No, it's not about jealousy. I just hate when someone tries to beat me at my own game. It all started 6 months ago, on that raw, dreary autumn evening. I was sitting at the bar in my newest restaurant, Lux, absently stirring my cocktail and mulling over the latest opening troubles. The new suppliers had missed their deadlines again, the executive chef was being temperamental, and the staff just couldn't gel. 20 years in the restaurant business, and every new opening feels like the first, complete with all the same growing pains. Martini on the rocks, please. That velvet baritone made me look up. 2 seats down sat a young man. His worn leather jacket clearly wasn't from this season's collection, but his athletic build, chiseled features, and that special spark in his eyes, the kind you only see in people hungry for success, caught my attention. I recognized that look immediately. I had the same one when I was starting out. Rough day. His question hung casually in the air as if addressed to no one in particular. I allowed myself to linger on his face a moment longer. Something about this picture didn't quite add up. His posture was too confident for someone in a worn jacket, his manners too refined for a regular at dive bars. You have no idea. Opening a new restaurant is always a headache, I replied, surprising myself with my candor. Oh, so this is your restaurant. Genuine admiration rang in his voice, making something flutter inside me. It's incredible. The wine list especially is impressive. I barely held back a smile. He hadn't even opened the menu. But the bluff was so elegant that I wanted to play along. You know your wines? A bit. I used to work as a sommelier. Between training clients, he said with that particular casualness that only comes from natural-born liars or very good actors. I listened to his stories about working in prestigious wine houses, about millionaire clients, about the intricacies of wine selection, and I knew with certainty he was lying. Masterfully, beautifully, with attention to detail, but lying. And somehow, it didn't put me off. Instead, I wanted to see just how far he'd take this game. His name was Jack, and he proved to be a magnificent conversationalist. He knew how to listen, ask the right questions, and could engage with any topic effortlessly. By the third glass of wine, I caught myself thinking that I hadn't met such an interesting man in ages. After 40, all dates turn into a dreary parade of successful but incredibly dull businessmen who only talk about their achievements. You know, Sarah, he said my name as if savoring it. There's something special about you. It's not just your beauty and success. There's this inner strength. I laughed. Jack, you realize I wasn't born yesterday. These compliments. No, no, you misunderstand. He moved closer, and I caught a whiff of expensive cologne. Probably spent his last dollars on a bottle to fit the establishment's standards. I truly admire women who've built their own empires. It's inspiring. There was genuine admiration in his eyes, or a very good imitation of genuine admiration, which essentially amounts to the same thing. 10 years of solitude after my divorce, an endless string of failed dates, and now, a young handsome man looking at me as if I were the center of the universe. Come to the office tomorrow. The words slipped out before I could think them through. Let's talk about working for the restaurant chain. He beamed, but quickly tried to mask his joy with restrained gratitude. Amusing. He didn't even ask about the position or salary. Though I already understood then, he wasn't aiming for a salary. Leaving the restaurant, I caught my reflection in the mirror, flushed cheeks, sparkle in my eyes. The last time I felt this way was 15 years ago, and somewhere deep inside, a treacherous thought stirred. Maybe this is that chance. That fairy tale you want so badly to believe in. Back then, I didn't know I was starting a game where all the roles were already cast. Successful middle-aged woman, young gold digger, romance with a bitter aftertaste. But I decided to play this game by my own rules. I scheduled Jack's interview in the farthest office of our Manhattan headquarters. I wanted to see how he'd behave on my turf. Walking into the reception area exactly on time, he looked impeccable. A sharp suit clearly not from the department store, probably borrowed from someone. Slicked back hair, direct gaze. The complete opposite of yesterday's guy in the worn leather jacket. Please have a seat, Jack. I deliberately didn't stand to greet him, continuing to review documents. Tell me more about your work experience. He spoke smoothly, without hesitation, as if reading from a script. The sommelier story gained more details, with names of famous restaurateurs and elite establishments thrown in. A beautiful fairy tale that you could believe if you wanted to. I purposely didn't interrupt him. I was curious to see how far his imagination would stretch. Impressive, I said when he finished. Now, let's be honest. You were working as a personal trainer, weren't you? Panic flashed in his eyes for a split second, but he quickly regained composure. Yes, recently. I had to change my line of work because. Jack, I raised my hand, stopping the flow of new lies. I did my homework. 3 years at a third-rate gym, fired for inappropriate conduct. Not a hint of restaurant industry experience. He stayed silent, clearly calculating his options. I could see his mind working, confess, keep denying, get up and leave. You know what? I leaned back in my chair, studying him like an interesting specimen. I like you. Or rather, I like your nerve. You'll start as a manager at one of my restaurants. If you prove yourself, we'll talk about advancement. His hesitation lasted no more than a second. Then his face lit up with that same smile, slightly shy, but hinting at something more. Miss Coleman, I won't let you down. I swear, you won't regret this. For the next 3 weeks, I watched him like a lab rat. Credit where credit's due. He worked with an obsession. He picked things up lightning fast, charmed staff and suppliers alike, and dove into every detail. In the evenings, we'd stay late at the restaurant, discussing business over glasses of wine. You know, he'd say, looking into my eyes with that special sincerity you can only buy with acting classes, I've never met a woman like you. You're not just beautiful and successful. There's something special about you. I melted at his words, fully aware of their flattery, but unwilling to break the moment's spell. After 10 years of solitude and an endless parade of dates with bland executives, I wanted to believe in this fairy tale, even knowing it was just that, a fairy tale. When he proposed a month later, I could only smirk to myself. How predictable. How by the book. As if there's some special course for gold diggers. How to hook a rich woman in 30 days. Being with you is what matters most to me. Money means nothing, he said while signing the ironclad prenup that wouldn't leave him a penny in case of divorce. I watched his bowed head and wondered, does he really believe he's outplayed me? That I don't see the cold calculation in his eyes when he turns away? That I don't understand this is just a business plan for him, an investment in his future? But honestly, what difference does it make? Everyone has their reasons for marriage. I got a young, handsome husband who admires me, or very convincingly pretends to. He got his ticket to a new life he dreamed of. A fair deal. At least, that's what I thought then. That evening, lying in my bedroom and listening to his steady breathing, I caught myself wondering, how long could he keep playing this role? A month? A year? Until the first young waitress set her sights on him. Well, time would tell. For now, let him think he's won. After all, I enjoy beautiful fairy tales too. I just know exactly how they usually end, unlike him. You know what's the funniest thing about a marriage of convenience? At first, you don't even notice the pretense. Jack played the role of the perfect husband with such dedication that sometimes I caught myself thinking, maybe he really did fall in love. Maybe miracles do happen. And then she appeared. Ashley. I knew immediately she'd be trouble. Jack's look when this girl walked into his office for the interview was all too familiar. The same look he once gave me at the bar. I don't have any experience. She began, nervously fidgeting with the hem of her simple dress. Jack's gaze lingered involuntarily on her delicate fingers. I watched this through the security cameras in my office, sipping coffee and wondering how quickly he'd take the bait. Ashley was his female version, just as hungry for the good life, with the same burning ambition in her eyes. Just as good an actress. I often walk past here. I see all these beautiful, successful people coming in, the girl's cheeks slightly flushed. I want to be part of this world. Learn everything from a leader like you. Oh, that old song and dance. I nearly laughed watching Jack fall for the same tricks he used himself just 6 months ago. He gave her a week's trial period, and the game was on. I specifically ordered additional cameras installed in the wine cellar after catching their first exchange glances. It was fascinating to watch the drama unfold. Jack clearly relished his new role. Now he was the successful man giving a chance to a simple girl from the suburbs. I watched their first kiss in the wine cellar while enjoying a glass of my favorite Chardonnay. Not bad staging, I'll give you that, darling. No, we shouldn't. You're married, Ashley whispered, but her body language said otherwise. How precious. She's almost as good an actor as you are. You don't know the whole truth about my marriage. Oh, this part was especially interesting. The story about my supposed depression, about a deceased first husband, about psychological problems. I had to give credit to Jack's imagination. I even recorded some particularly dramatic moments of his storytelling. Might come in handy for the next season of our favorite soap opera. You see, I couldn't leave her in that state. His eyes glistened with practiced sincerity. The doctors said another shock could break her completely. I became her anchor, her only support. Funny thing is, he wasn't entirely wrong. I did need an anchor. Just not the kind he thought. I needed someone to remind me why I never mix business with heart, why you shouldn't believe in beautiful fairy tales. And Jack was performing this role perfectly, without even knowing it. Their meetings became more frequent. Stolen moments in the restaurant's storage rooms, rare evenings in a rented apartment. My people tracked their every move. I could have ended it at any time, but I was curious. Where would this story lead? How far would they go with their lies? We must be careful, he'd whisper, kissing her neck. Sarah watches my every move. Her jealousy could lead to unpredictable consequences. Oh, darling, if you only knew how right you were. But my unpredictable consequences would be quite different from what you're imagining. I patiently waited for the final act of this play to unfold, and Ashley didn't disappoint. Jack, I've been thinking. Their conversation in the rented apartment became my cue to act. Naive plans about their own restaurant, dreams of a future together. How predictable. How human. It was time to end this story, but not in the way Jack expected. Oh no, I had prepared a special finale for this fairy tale. I deliberately sent Jack on a business trip to Boston that day. I wanted to see who would make the first move, him or Ashley. The girl proved to be quicker and more decisive than I'd expected. Miss Coleman, may I speak with you? It's very important. Her voice trembled as she entered my office. I shut my laptop and leaned back in my chair, studying this knave girl who decided to play at nobility. Come in, Ashley. I've been expecting you. She launched into her story, rambling, emotional, full of tears and dramatic pauses. The tale about my non-existent depression, about my imaginary deceased husband, about noble Jack who didn't want to hurt me. I listened, and a strange feeling grew inside. Not anger, no. More like professional respect for Jack. He wasn't a bad scriptwriter after all. What an interesting script, I said when Ashley finally fell silent. And how long ago did he tell you this heart-wrenching story? 2 months ago. She blushed. How charming, still capable of blushing. When you started sleeping together in that rented apartment on West 23rd Street, I had opened my smartphone and started scrolling through the surveillance footage. Or maybe when you were having your rendezvous in the wine cellar. Her face went white. You know what's most interesting about moments like these? Watching someone realize they've been not the hunter, but the prey all along. My dear girl, I allowed a maternal note to enter my voice. Did you really think that such a primitive suburban gold digger could deceive me? I knew about your meetings from the very beginning. Every step he took, every glance in your direction, it was all laid bare. I stood and walked to the window, Spring in New York was in full bloom, but the office felt like it had been hit with an Arctic blast. You know what's most amusing? I truly hoped he proved smarter, that he'd understand. I gave him everything: status, money, opportunities. But no, once a cheap gigolo, always a cheap gigolo. When Jack returned from his business trip, he found an empty apartment. On the kitchen table, a folder with divorce papers and a USB drive with surveillance recordings. I ignored his calls, let him stew in uncertainty for a while. Meanwhile, at Lux, I held two documents in my hands. The first, Jack's voluntary resignation. The second, Ashley's promotion to restaurant manager. Sit down, I nodded to the chair across from me. We need to have a serious talk. Miss Coleman, I. Let's skip that. I waved my hand dismissively. At my age, you don't suffer over male infidelity, especially when the man himself was nothing more than a convenient acquisition. I slid the documents across the table. You showed character and common sense. That's worth more than any loyalty built on lies. But keep in mind, I'll hold you to an even higher standard than I did him. But, after everything, you really trust me to? My dear girl, I smiled. I've been in this business for 20 years, and you know what I've learned. As long as a woman has her own business and her own money, she'll always have handsome men. At any age. Only now you'll be the one choosing, both the conditions and the rules of the game. I handed her an expensive fountain pen. Sign these, and remember, in our business, there's no room for tears and drama. There are only numbers, facts, and results. And men, they're just a pleasant addition to a successful life. Nothing more. You know what's most important in any game? Not winning, but knowing how to turn a defeat into a new opportunity at just the right moment. Jack thought he was playing me. Ashley believed she was saving him. And I just found myself a new successor. Who knows, maybe she'll turn out to be an even better manager than he was. After all, she got an excellent lesson in how not to run a business. And Jack? Let him go back to his gym. I hear they just happened to have a trainer position open up.